All right, welcome to the W2W Review. I am the Oakland Knight, and joining me today is the Raider Pirate. What's up, Pirate?
What's going on, Raider Nation?
All right, Raider Nation. Today is Thursday, the 22nd of September, which obviously means it is actually the first day of autumn. Which, you know what that means? That means today the autumn wind is blowing. So with that being said, let's go ahead and start taking a look at this week's matchup versus the Tennessee Titans. We go on the road. We have to go into Tennessee. It's going to be an early morning game. I'm finally to the point where I could say we're not going to struggle in the sense that, you know, in the past we've tend to think that we struggle on the East Coast, but we've done a lot better job of handling that situation with Jack Del Rio at the helm. So I'm excited about that. And with that being said, Pirate, let's go ahead and take a look at the press conferences between Jack Del Rio and Derek Carr yesterday. I personally wasn't that impressed. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you know, you're going to get the basic staple of what it is that, you know, they're going to tell us, which is nothing pretty much. It's going to be close to the vest. Jack Del Rio has, you know, again, proven to be one of those types of coaches that is going to keep everything hidden from you until the very last minute, which is a good thing to do from a football perspective. Bad thing if you're actually a fan and you're looking for some real answers, right? Is this guy going to play? Is this guy out of position? Are you going to make changes? Is this guy hurt? All of those types of things that we want to know moving into the following week. Jack's really not going to give up any of that information. I mean, we saw it at the beginning of the year. The Raiders don't release even their practice squad until, you know, 5 hours after everybody else in the whole league has released their practice squad. So, you know, Derek Carr, once again, he's going to toe the company line. You know, Carl Joseph, all these guys, they're going to toe the company line. They're going to tell you exactly what they've been sort of trained to tell you. And I think it's only if you sit down and you listen to these things and you analyze them and then you watch what happens on the field in the following weeks that you really begin to understand what these guys are saying. So once again, I watched them, but to me, it's the company line.
No, exactly. And I just, to me, you know, as a fan, as a guy who tries to analyze the team to his best of his ability, you know, yes, you're definitely looking for a lot more information than they give out. And yesterday, we just didn't really get much. I mean, we got some of the basic MO stuff that we've already heard 1,000 times over. When you look at the post-game conference with Jack Del Rio, there was a lot of hidden information in there, and we were able to break that down on Tuesday. And that was actually a really fun show to do because, you know, we were able to do what I personally like to do, which is take something that Jack says and kind of read behind it. And that's what I was looking for yesterday. I was like, okay, Jack, you know, give me a nugget, Jack. Give me something that I could, you know, break down and try to delve in behind the backstory of this thing. And not only with Jack, but with Derek Carr, too, we didn't really get a lot of that. So there wasn't a lot of room for us to really kind of get in there and start tweaking things. But while we have the chance, let's go ahead and just revisit Tuesday because there's some things here that we could talk about. And, you know, from what he said on Tuesday, or actually what he said on Monday that we covered on Tuesday, let's look into that a little bit and see if we could revisit that. And what is your thoughts about this defense, Pirate? What are some of the major changes? What would you like to see reading into what Jack said on Monday?
You know, again, this is kind of a mixed bag for me because going back, I think what happened if we just go back to the beginning of what we were just talking about right now before going to Tuesday, I think Monday, I think Jack Del Rio coming out of these games is very emotional, and that's when the truth is going to kind of come out. I think he's had a couple of days to kind of sit down and think about it. Just like any of us, you know, we get upset, we start typing up an email to somebody, or we go to respond to somebody in the comments, and then you realize, hey, you know what? This isn't the right thing to do. You know, responding in anger or responding in frustration is not the right thing to do. you really want to sit down and think about it and come out with a solution, number one, and move from there. So I think that's what you're getting from Jack Del Rio. After a tough loss like that, he came out and just basically let us in probably closer than we've been in to what's going on with the Raiders. But now as we move forward, it's going to, once again, okay, guys, we can't do that. Let's circle the wagons once again. And you kind of got that from Derek Carr. The one thing from the Carr conference, once again, take what the defense gives you. In my opinion, you're never going to be a great quarterback if you just take what the defense gives you. In my opinion, that is the epitome of the game manager. We see that with Alex Smith. We see that with a number of different quarterbacks that are serviceable. They're never great, but they're serviceable. I think Derek Carr has a much better skill set. We need to start forcing the ball down the field. I like the fact that he doesn't have any interceptions. But again, let's face it, with a defense that's not playing well, we're going to have to take some chances when we get past the 50 and go for the throw. Don't throw the ball horizontally, throw the ball a little bit more vertically. I'm not saying go crazy and be a gunslinger and take all kinds of risks. I'm just saying when the opportunity presents itself, when we do get a turnover, we need to start going for the throat. Defensively, I'm a little concerned. Again, a middle linebacker that doesn't have a lot of experience going against a multifaceted football team. Particularly since Tennessee is throwing the ball more to their backs. They got Delaney Walker, who's a killer in the middle of the field. They got a mobile quarterback in Marcus Mariota. So all of these things concern me when you've got, guys on the line that aren't doing their job, guys in the middle of the field that aren't communicating, and then a secondary which needs help on a pretty consistent basis. So I'm just hoping that they come up with a really good scheme here to combat this multifaceted offense.
I agree. And when you look at what Derek Carr said, about, he takes what the defense gives him, I guess that's just the politically correct answer, right? I mean, this guy, he's a little confused at times, at least on the podium, right? Because, all we hear about is, he has a gunslinger type mentality. He's willing to take chances and give his receivers opportunities, even when they let him down, because he understands there's times where he lets them down. I've always liked that about Derek Carr. So when he said that yesterday, I was kind of like, okay, I mean, that's the politically correct answer, right? I'm going to protect the football. I'm going to check it down. I'm going to give it, I'm going to take what the defense is giving me, excuse me. But at the end of the day, like you said, I mean, there has to become a point in time where you just let it loose. And that's been the biggest problem that we've had thus far, at least with the offense. We could look at the over 30 points a game we're putting up and be like, you know what, that's great. We have the number one total offense in the NFL. That's great. But, as analysts, we sit here and we talk about, well, as good as it may be statistically, there's still a lot of room for improvement with this football team. And it starts with, being able to be aggressive early on. And this is something that I want Derek Carr and Bill Musgrave to get into their head that, in order to be a really dominant, prolific offense, I talked about the 99 St. Louis Rams, that, they just took what they wanted something, they went and took it. Kurt Warner was throwing BBs. They constantly attacked. There was a game where they lost their field goal kicker, and they had their punter do it one time, I think it was, and it wasn't that great. And they decided to go on it, and every fourth down, they just went for it, and they converted every single one of them. And that's the mentality sometimes you have to have, especially when your defense is struggling so bad. You're going to have to be able to kick it up a gear, because you're going to have to put obviously more than 30 points to win games right now. We hope that changes this week. We hope that the defense can respond and put something together and put the offense in better situations. But from what we've seen the last 2 weeks and where we stand right now statistically and the way that the games have flowed, they become shootouts. But these shootouts really don't start to occur until the second half. So we have to go in there with a shootout mentality in quarter one. First possession, push the ball. Let's really put the heat on a guy like Mariota, because one of my concerns when I look back at the preseason game, our pass rush has been very inconsistent. And in particular, that preseason game versus the Tennessee Titans, we over-pursued the outside. We over-pursued the edges, which opened up the middle of the field, and Mariota was scorching us. And when that wasn't happening, he was able to get to the outside because we overcompensated the middle. And we didn't have our protections. Our defensive ends kept getting sucked in. and Mariota would just roll out and take off. That's a threat that he brings to the table, and we have to be ready to respond, and that is going to have to start with that defensive line. It has to play disciplined schemes. It has to hold its gaps. It's got to protect the outside as well as the inside, because we cannot give up, third down and long plays to Mariota with his feet. Your thoughts on that, partner?
Yeah, once again, I mean, everybody keeps saying we went through, the tough part of the schedule with the good quarterbacks. But if you look at our defense, this is the type of offense that is going to give our defense real struggles. I mean, if you look at both Drew Brees and Matt Ryan, they were able to have some zone run going on and then come back across with the bootlegs and hit the drags to their tight ends, go down the field on us. But Marcus Mariota was designed for this type of offense, the Shanahan style of offense. Once again, where, like I said, you do the zone run, get everybody running in one direction, and then go ahead and bootleg off of that to a tight end dragging across the field. Delaney Walker is made for this, and so is Marcus Mariota. And now, if everybody's moving toward one side of the field, and you have both Mariota and Delaney Walker on the other side of the field in the open field, it's going to present some real problems. We've had this problem with over pursuit the entire preseason, not just in the Tennessee game. I saw it over and over again, and I saw Carl Joseph being overly aggressive with it. I think that's why they decided, hey, let's kind of sit him a little bit, and make him understand how important it is for him to have no eye violations. And make sure that he can get to the ball. So once again, at the end of the day, this is. Even though people are saying, okay, now, you're going to get a Tennessee team that, it should be manageable. This is actually the Achilles heel of this football team right now in terms of not being able to shut down the outside and not being able to cover the tight ends on some of these drag routes and into these open zones. So, in my opinion, it's going to be extremely important that these guys play very, very disciplined football and that they communicate with one another and understand where their responsibilities are supposed to be. It's going to be a challenge.
No, absolutely. And when you look at the teams that we played, I mean, Atlanta, for example, we did a good job against the Saints as far as containing their running backs. But then again, Drew Brees was throwing all over us. Last week, what I saw was Matt Ryan not only being able to take advantage of the same situation, but they were able to run the ball a lot better than the Saints were. And I think they came at us with a more balanced attack. And that's what we have to be ready for this week, because a guy like Mariota, as long as we can contain him inside the pocket, he will make some mistakes. He's shown that in the last couple of weeks. Even though he's a great quarterback and he's improved tremendously from year one to year two, he's still a second-year player. So the more pressure that we can put on him by keeping him in the pocket and not allowing him to get up to the outside is going to benefit us, because as we noticed, this is a running attack that can explode. It exploded on us in the preseason. We should be ready for that. Both DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry was able to take advantage of the middle of our defense, and we cannot allow that to happen if we're going to sustain any type of momentum, for our offense and give them better field position. And it's funny when you look at the past two games. You look at how the games go down, and we've been winning the time of possession battles. We just haven't done enough with it. And that's funny to say when you're putting up 30 points a game. But again, this goes back to first quarter, second quarter play. That definitely needs to improve on this offense. We're going to have to find a way to generate momentum, not just for the points on the board, but I think that's also going to help give the defense confidence and put the defense in situations where they can take advantage of the score and playing with the score high. We need to make the Tennessee Titans one-dimensional. So we need to force the ball into Mariota's hands, take it out of the running back's hands, and the best way you do that is by scoring early, and putting the Titans in a situation where we've been in the last 2 weeks where we got to have to throw the ball just to try to catch up. All right, that's going to wrap up segment number 1. When we get back, we're going to continue this conversation. There's a lot of things that we need to get into still, just about this team in general moving forward, the personnel, especially on defense, as we get ready to take on the Tennessee Titans in Tennessee. It's not going to be an easy task, but I think it's one that could really get it kicked off, because like I said, today is the first week of autumn, and that autumn wind is blowing. All right, stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Coming to you on the airwaves. Can you grab it each and every day? And when you get it, you got something. So don't worry,
All right, welcome back to the W2W Review. I'm the Oakland Knight, joined by the Raider Pirate. We're getting ready to start segment 2. All right, so let's go ahead and dive back into this game. But before we actually get started in this part of the segment, let's go ahead and take a look at an email that we received. Pirate, there's a topic that we want to talk about today.
Yeah, we did get an email that I thought was interesting. We generally can't answer all the emails that we do get, but I thought this was an interesting, really juicy email, and it was sent from Yiddish Raider. And basically, he asks, with Jack Del Rio on staff, with Ken Norton Jr. on staff, with Reggie McKenzie on staff, all these guys being linebackers, why is it that we don't have a good, linebacking core, and that we're not doing very well in terms of our linebacking? And so I kind of looked at this and I thought to myself, I remember back in 2006, I believe it was, Art Shell was the head coach, Hall of Fame offensive lineman. Jackie Slater was brought in, as well as Irv Eatman, to help with Robert Gallery, who was struggling at left tackle, eventually moved into guard. But basically, there was some weaknesses on that line. The offensive line was not very good. Tom Cable came in after that, and it's still, this was a guy that was a great offensive line guy and still struggled for a while. Again, eventually moving Gallery in. But the idea, I think, a lot of times is that when these coaches come in, they will look past that position because they played at such a high level at that position. They'll look past that position and they'll think, you know what? We got Art Shell, we got Jackie Slater, we have Irv Eatman. We're going to be fine. Let's build everything else around us because we can coach the offensive line and we can get the most out of the littlest on this football team.
Correct.
And I think that's the same thing that happened here. We're all linebackers. We're going to be fine. Let's shore up everywhere else. Reggie McKenzie has a very low opinion of linebackers. You don't take him in the first round. He has a very low opinion of middle linebackers in general. He said in the past, and this is a philosophy from Green Bay, from Ron Wolf, that you don't go out there and draft a middle linebacker. You take an outside linebacker that can't play outside linebacker and you put him in the middle. So it's not a position of priority. So I think this is one of those types of things where, you get a coaching staff that comes in and they think that because they were able to do it, everybody can do it, a la Michael Jordan, not
Right.
a great coach, not a great owner. Why? Because a lot of people don't have the talent that he had. And so you get sort of what it is that we're getting. You kind of overlook those things, and then you realize really quickly, hey, you know what? It's kind of important that we have some talent at this position. And I think that's what we're getting right now. I think that it was overlooked, it was undervalued, and it's something that is going to continue, I think, to be a problem unless they make some adjustments and do a really, really good job of coaching.
Absolutely, and when you look at it from that perspective too, let's take a look. Regardless of how good Jack Del Rio was as a linebacker, Ken Norton as well, and even as well as they coach and they teach, there's certain things that you just can't teach, and that is size. And that's what we're seeing from our linebacking core. There's an issue with size, especially in the middle. When you look at Ben Heaney, athletically, the guy's got all the tools. He's fast, he's instinctive. He could really get to the ball when there's not too much on his plate. But as middle linebacker, there's a lot of things that he has to read. And I'm not saying that he's having a hard time reading it. I just think maybe he's reacting too quickly to certain play fakes to one side or the other. He's reading the offensive line too much instead of reading the ball carrier maybe. But it's his size. It's his inability to shed off the tacklers, the tight ends that they're moving around, the fullbacks that are coming through. He needs to do a better job of getting off blocks and filling up his gap. And, we could also put that on Justin Jelly Ellis. We've talked about that many times. That's why it's been so intriguing to me of the Corey James move. A rookie coming in, very unexperienced. He's undersized weight-wise as well, but his stature is a little bit better, and that's what intrigues me about a guy like Corey James, is because when he's able to drop back down the seam and take away a passing lane, I at least like that part of it, and he's just as aggressive as being Heaney at the line. But I think, we might see him struggle getting off blocks too. But the point of this whole thing is, what's going on with coaching the linebackers, right? I honestly believe that it's not so much a technique situation as it is size. I mean, you see Ben Heaney at times be in the right area, but he's being swallowed up by tight ends, fullbacks, and offensive linemen. He can't get off them. It's a size issue to me. You know, it's not a question of the coaching at this point, at least right now. We'll see moving forward. I mean, we're 2 weeks into this, but to me, it really is a size issue, and that's something that needs to be addressed. Like you mentioned in 2006, we bring in all these guys, and we still couldn't get it right. And it essentially came down to Robert Gallery was not a left tackle. He was a left guard. And until they actually moved him there, we didn't get the most out of Gallery. So this is where this coaching staff has to look at its roster and say, okay, we have to find the right middle linebacker, because in the mix of all this, because I know Malcolm Smith has been getting a little bit of heat as well, and we've mentioned that in previous shows. I honestly solely believe that Malcolm Smith's issue is the same as what I'm seeing from Reggie Nelson right now. It's trying to overcompensate for the lack of another player. So if Reggie Nelson's supposed to have Sean Smith's back, but yet he has to look towards the middle of the field too much, and it's the same with Malcolm Smith. Hey man, Ben Heaney's getting swallowed up, so I got to watch my gap and his gap at the same time, which is allowing or causing Malcolm Smith to be late on his reads and maybe getting late to going out and helping out Heaney as well. That's just, my personal opinion on things. Obviously, it's outside my pay grade to be specific on that, but that's just the way I see it. Your thoughts, Pirate?
Yeah, I mean, once again, I think bringing in Carl Joseph is going to be big. If guys are going to be running around, getting knocked out of plays by guards and fullbacks and things like that, you have to have somebody that can play close to the line of scrimmage that's going to be an enforcer. I think Carl Joseph can do that. I still don't, in my opinion, I think that Nelson shouldn't be playing that single high spot. Allen probably has a lot more speed and range to be able to do that. So, once again, in my opinion, it may seem to people, again, like we're down on this football team, and that's not the case. When you give up 1,000 yards on defense, you got to talk about it, folks. I know certain people, oh, my God, it's only the second. You know what? You said that the second week of preseason. Now you're saying it the second week of the regular season. We've only got 16 of these. So what we're trying to do is scratch our head and figure out, what can we do? What types of changes can we make? In my opinion, like I said, I've said it from the beginning, it's the front four that are creating the majority of the problems that we have. Ray Lewis was on Undisputed, and he was talking to Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp, and he made some great points. Look, I'm communicating with the guy that's in front of me. I need to know that he's not going to go too wide. He's not going to leave me exposed. Once I know that by communicating with him, then I can turn around and give a hand signal to Ed Reed to let him know, okay, we're set. This is what I'm doing. If I make this move, if I jump this route or come inside or they do this, then you know that you have to cover my back. And he said, watching the Raiders, they didn't do any of that. Now, that could be a combination of Heaney basically just trying to get the play in on time and understanding what he's supposed to do. But if you look at it that way, you really don't need a defensive coordinator for that. All you need is a position coach, a linebacker coach to say, this is what you do, Ben, and as long as you do this, you'll be okay. But that's not how football is played. Football is played with all 11 guys under the defensive coordinator, and that's why we say coaching and scheme. You got to get the message into these guys, and you got to coach them up to make sure that they're communicating. That's one of the most important things. If you got your defensive linemen shooting up the field, leaving huge gaps for guards to get on, as we've talked about time and time again, guards to get on your linebackers, knock them out of plays, and again, they're overrunning certain plays because they're being a little bit too aggressive. Now you're leaving your secondary exposed. You don't have a lot of speed. Your secondary is trying to compensate for your corners. It's a mess. So once again, get this defensive line coached up right. Get them understanding what it is that they're supposed to do. Maybe the addition of having somebody like Corey James in the middle is going to allow you a little bit more strength up front. A little better ability to get off the blocks. But like Ray Lewis said, if I don't have to worry about getting off blocks, if I can communicate with Haloti Ngata or Saragusa and Sam Adams, and I know what they're going to do, I know that they're going to keep me clean, then I could communicate back to my secondary and let those guys know, all right, here's the play, fellas. Let's go out and get it. So That's going to be important, but like I said, I think Carl Joseph coming in, the ability, the speed that he brings to the table, and his ability to hit, come in there and hit. McGill may be able to do certain things, but I'm pretty sure that he cannot hit like Carl Joseph. So it's going to be exciting. And again, we're not down on this football team. We're simply trying to point out certain things that aren't working on this defense because the offense is doing a great job overall.
No, absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and get into my final thoughts for this game, and then I'm going to kick it back to you for your final thoughts. Look, it comes down to just like Pirate said, okay? Our offense is doing a good job, but unfortunately, they're in a situation where they have to kick it up a notch and do a little bit better, especially in the first half of football games. So what I'm expecting and wanting to see is a more aggressive offensive attack in the first half to try to give us the even if it's a closer matchup throughout the game instead of falling behind by 14. I want to see us be a little bit more aggressive offensively. Other than that, stay consistent. Hopefully they don't have that down moment where they actually struggle this week, because we're not in a position for that just yet with our defense. And defensively, that's where the key to this game is. We're going to have to find some type of answers. Look, it's not going to be corrected in 1 week. And yes, we understand it's only 2 weeks into the season, but there's some glaring problems. And the first thing that we need to start with, in my opinion, you take it one step at a time, and we've been talking about it all week, it's a personnel deal, all right? We need to change up some of the personnel. We need to give Corey James a shot. He's just a taller stature guy anyway. At least we got that. And he's also just as aggressive and a playmaker like Ben Heaney. Why not try to change it up a little bit? We also need to shift our safeties around, and that's also been talked about. See Carl Joseph, give this young guy a chance. Maybe he gives us the spark that we're looking for. And like Pirate mentioned, maybe you switch around Reggie Nelson and swap those two guys out and just try something different at this point. And then obviously they have to communicate better. They have to understand exactly what the game plan is, communicate it, and then execute it. So if that means that this coaching staff needs to dummy it down, then dummy it down a little bit. Let's go into a base defense. Let's try not to mix it up too much and just cover our responsibilities. That's what you see a lot of the times when an offense struggles. You just dummy it down just to kind of get a rhythm going. Maybe that's what we need to do defensively. So looking forward and ahead of this game, as long as we could at least find a spark on defense and really cause and generate some stops and give Derek Carr and this offense some more opportunity, we're going to be okay. Pirate, your final thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I think this, like I said, this could be a nightmare for this defense. Tennessee has not been scoring a lot of points, but again, we're giving up 71% completions on in terms of allowing other teams to complete passes. 71%. That's 7 out of 10 times we're giving up receptions. And we're giving it up for 8 yards a play, right?
Correct.
So. Well, again, if you look at that 8 yards, that's more than 10 yards. I mean, I'm going by my own math here, but to me, you don't have to do too many plays in order to get first downs. If you're giving up 8 yards a play. So we got to get off the field. We got to generate more pressure. We've got to blitz. That's just the bottom line. We got to blitz. We got to get in there. That's the one thing Ben Heaney is really, really good at, is getting to the quarterback. Unfortunately, he's not a great middle linebacker, but he's really good at getting to the quarterback and making the nice hit. He's not dragging guys down or wrapping them up by the ankles or, shoestring. I mean, this guy's going in and he pounds on quarterbacks. So bring him in some of those nickel situations, blitz him a little bit more, and, like I said, create some pressure, because we've only got 2 sacks through 2 games. Khalil Mack is almost non-existent in that sense. So we really have to go out and we've got to make some plays defensively in order to win this game. Let's not forget, if you look at the quarterback numbers, Mariota, if we think Carr is doing well, Mariota's doing just as well. And he's got a killer tight end. They're throwing the ball to the running backs as well as running with the running backs. So this is a dangerous football team. Even though it seems like, hey, we should be able to go in and do this and do that, this is a dangerous football team. I'd hate to be sitting here next week talking about why we lost to the Tennessee Titans when we should have come out with a win.
No, absolutely, guys. And just remember, I'm going to reiterate it again. Today is the first day of autumn. The autumn wind is blowing. Now let's just hope it blows right through Tennessee. That's all we could hope for. All right, that's all the time that we have for today. We want to remind you, as always, we have a Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all at The Will to Win. We also have an email that you can email us any questions and concerns. That's at thew2w@gmail.com, thew2w@gmail.com. All right, for the Raider Pirate, I'm the Oakland Knight. We will see you guys Sunday after the game. Don't forget to tune in live on YouTube where we take your live phone calls and get your instant reaction. Until then, you stay Raider strong.
Thank you.